And welcome to Catholics Coast to Coast. Happy New Year and ready for 2026 as we dive into what's happening at Podcast Central. I'm Ace McKay. Easy to find us when you go to EWTN.com/podcast. And as you find your favorites, you can also stream and subscribe wherever you like. That way, platform of choice you never miss, and you deepen your walk with God as we dive right in. And recently, my buddy, Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers, and I, we do this on a regular monthly basis. We have what we call Beacon of Truth playlist. And so we got a chance to talk about the song Changes by David Bowie, which was a big part of our childhood, but also as we think about changes into the new year, you know, again, letting music and actually not even realizing sometimes how it shapes how we think. So we're going to dive right in and get you caught up on that conversation with Beacon of Truth playlist on this week's Catholics Coast to Coast.
That is very cool. Love that snare sound.
Yeah. The tighter, the better.
Yeah. I love the pop of the snare. You know, sometimes I was listening to, was it Dream Theater? I think it was when Mike Mancini was playing with them. And, you know, his snare sound sounded very, like, dead. I like, not like, I like the pop. I think to hear that contrast, you know, between the snare and the bass, because the bass is already playing in a lower register, you know, and of course there's toms, right?
Sure.
On the drum, but I want that sound to pop. I want that just like to, you know, just kind of hit you. But if it sounds a little bit more deadened, it doesn't have the same effect, I don't think. Well, and I mean, I'm not being critical of his playing or anything like that. It's not. I mean, he's a monster. He's a brilliant player. I'm just about the tone, you know, and the feel. I'm not talking about his playing ability at all.
Well, and every drummer has their own preferences. I like the snare tight, and then to control, if I need a softer sound, I'd rather control it with brushes or rods, you know, because again, it's about my intensity of playing versus allowing the drum to sound like it does no matter who hits it, you know.
Yep. You know, Sandy was on YouTube, and she said she was listening, and she's Sandy's a regular listener and contributor on YouTube. I was listening. She says, was listening. I'm stunned. No more MTV. So obviously, I'm not the only one who didn't know, Ace. You know, have to tell my mom ASAP. She doesn't watch television due to her work.
Sorry to break her heart.
So I did not know that. That's good to know. All right. I'm Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers, listening to Beacon of Truth, and we have a Beacon of Truth playlist episode today. We're going to be taking a look at David Bowie's popular song, Changes, today, and we'd love to hear from you. How do you deal with change, right? Especially from a faith perspective. When change comes, again, change is inevitable. Like I said, it's not a matter of if, it's when. Some changes are good, some changes maybe not so good, but you have to accept it. You know, when you're praying to the Lord for making a change in your life, you know, are we able to patiently wait for the Lord to work? It's all about dealing with changes today on the Beacon of Truth playlist episode. Would love to hear from you. Give us a call, 833-288-EWTN. That's 833-288-3986.
Well, celebrating 23 years, we want to say congratulations to WSOG, Spring Valley, El Paso, and Normal, Illinois, as Jim and Mark and the team at Spirit Educational Association is another year older. So we want to celebrate with you. So congrats. And of course, thanks to all the families that are supporting them as well. Thanks for supporting Catholic Radio and EWTN Radio.
All right, the Beacon of Truth playlist episode today. We're taking a look at Changes, a popular song from the early 70s by David Bowie. And would love to hear from you today. How do you deal with change? How do you accept change, especially from a faith perspective? Would love to hear from you today, 833-288-EWTN. That's 833-288-3986. Elizabeth reaching out to us on YouTube. Bing Crosby and David Bowie. Probably the only song I know of David Bowie right now. Don't know about the rest. Well, the other ones you may have heard of, Elizabeth, Space Odyssey.
Yep.
You know, that was very popular. You know, Major Tom to Ground Control. Yeah, I love that song. And Fame was the other one. Fame.
With John Lennon. That's John singing on that song with him.
Oh, it is? Oh, I didn't know that.
The original lyric was gibberish, and then John came out. He goes, this song is like you're talking about someone as famous. And so they changed it from just like, from from just like a sound to the word.
Oh, to fame. Oh,
so yeah. So that's John singing.
How
with
about?
him.
I did not know that. Boy, Ace, boy, you're just full of great knowledge. I love that.
It's just pouring out on a regular basis.
All right, we're talking about David Bowie's song Changes on this Beacon of Truth playlist episode. Would love to hear from you. How have you dealt with change, especially from a perspective of faith? 833-288-EWTN. That's 833-288-3986. So Changes is a song by David Bowie, who, of course, was an British musician from, I can't believe this, 1971.
Yes.
You know, I was what? I don't know, five or something like that, or six or something. You know, 71. I mean, that is a long time. So by the time I was into music, you know, that song must have been, what, 10 or 8, 9 years old, and still to this day, timeless.
Yeah.
You know, it was released the single was released in 1972. The album came out in 1971. It was written following his promotional tour in the U.S. of 1971, and Changes was recorded at the famous Trident Studios in London, England. You know anything else about the song, Ace?
Well, I do know that he wrote it at a time that he was himself going through some changes and was kind of facing some things that he really wasn't sure what was going to happen. And of course, as we get into the lyrics today, you can really hear from the heart of someone who is searching, is seeking. And to me, you know, guy to guy to guy, I mean, he's talking about all the things in this song that I think we all do as men, as we go from being boys to men, or we go from being single to married, or married to fathers. Like, it's always, and again, you know, whether we're pursuing fame or we're pursuing money or we're pursuing opportunity, like, we get there and it's like, this is not what I thought it would be. And, you know, and if you had to generalize this song, that's really the heart of it. But I love, as you break it down, you really start to peel back the layers of someone who's, to me, seeking to find eternal purpose, a spiritual purpose, because again, there is always that God-shaped hole in us that we're trying to cram and fill with things of the world, or things that we think that will make us happy. And then we're just like, I have all the things that I could ever want and I'm miserable. Well, there's a reason for that, you know?
Love that. And you're absolutely right. I think the lyrics speak to that. We're talking about change today on this Beat of Truth playlist episode, looking at David Bowie's song, Changes. As we go through the lyrics, would love to hear from you. How have you dealt with change? What are some things in your life that you want to change, that you're having difficulty changing? Would love to hear from you. Give us a call, 833-288-EWTN. That's 833-288-3986. Marie is calling from Missouri, listening on iHeartRadio.
Yeah.
Marie, welcome to Beacon of Truth.
Thank you. Appreciate you taking my call.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you got the screening from the screener, but I think I've become a self-aware narcissist. I know.
And what makes you say that?
I'm going through a divorce, and I think that God revealed to me that so much of it was my fault. I'm putting myself first above my husband, above God. Well, I thought I was putting God first, but often we think that, and we are not. Above my husband, above my children, and I think I'm the one who ruined the marriage and the relationship with my kids. And now I'm not sure. I feel like I've lost all love in my life.
Wow.
And I don't know how to get it back.
Well, let me ask you this. What was there something, as you were going through all of this, was there something that happened that helped you realize that, as you said, you come to this revelation that this was your fault, that you're a narcissist? What led you to that conclusion? Because, you know, if this was something that you would have realized earlier, you know, maybe things would have been different. But what changed in your life, or in your thought, or in your prayer that led you to this revelation?
Well, I was doing a lot of research on narcissism. Someone had told me that my husband was a narcissist. Mm-hmm. And then I did a lot of research, and I made I made him fit the narrative. I was like, oh my gosh, he is a narcissist and, fits all these things. But now I realize it's me. And one night God I feel like it was God, could have been demonic, I don't know, but showed me at warp speed so many things. I was trying to sleep one night and I couldn't sleep, and just warp speed, so many things that I could have done differently, and where it wasn't about me. It should have been about my children or about my husband, about my marriage.
And it's too. I'm assuming from the tenor of your call here that it's too late in your mind. Then to now you come to this realization, it's too late to change things. You're on a path that's inevitable here.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah. So, and because of this, you feel like a loss of love. You've lost a sense of love, and you want to gain that back again, right? Is that it?
Yes. Okay. I feel like, I don't know, like love doesn't exist in my life anymore, and that's so sad to me. And, I pray the rosary with my mom, but it's almost like going through the motions, and I'm like,
yep.
I just went to Rome. I was there for when the new pope was announced, and I was like on just the highest of highs, and I was on a pilgrimage in the Jubilee year, and it was amazing. And what happened? What happened to that feeling of love and having that door open to God?
Yeah, and so many people, Marie, have been in your situation, including myself. There was a time when my best friend died that I felt emptiness. I felt, like you said, going through the motions in my prayer life. I didn't understand. I was angry with God, and I didn't feel His love or His presence. And really, it's understanding, Marie, that sometimes we're going through something difficult, especially when you come to the realization that it's me, that we don't feel worthy of God's love. And so it was almost like a self-loathing kind of a thing that, it's like, oh, if only I could have realized this earlier, if only I would have, but here's the thing. And sometimes we get stuck in that, but God can unstick us, right? Mm-hmm. God's love and God's mercy is greater than any pain that we may be in, that any, we're stuck in a certain place and God wants to get us unstuck. So I would just, my go-to thing is go to adoration, Eucharistic adoration, and just sit there and just let God speak to you. Just be with Him face to face, heart to heart, and just say, Lord, I'm empty, fill me. Now, I can't do this by myself anymore. I need you. I need to feel your love back in my life again. And just go there and have Him fill you. He's there, present, body, blood, soul, divinity, that most blessed sacrament. Let Him fill you with His life. And you don't have to say anything. Just sit there and let Him fill you. He knows your pain. He knows what you're going through. And He endured the cross for us. So He understands pain. But He endured that out of love. And He wants to share that love with you, Maria, in your moment of pain. Right? So I would go to adoration and just be there, be still and know God. Come to know Him again. Enter into that relationship of intimacy with Him again. In that peace and that stillness and that silence where it's just you and Him, apart from any other distraction, anything else that may be going on in your life.
Yeah, and as someone who has been where you are, I would say, too, just let God rebuild your reputation as He's changing you, because He will, and that's His promise to us. But again, it's about you, as Deacon was saying, you and He, you being one with God to the point that people can't deny the change that's happening in you. And then any relationships that need to be repaired will only be repaired because of where you are with God.
Yes. Amen. That's help, Marie?
Yes. Do you feel like I need to let it go, let go? And like the relationships with my children, unfortunately, I haven't seen or spoken to my children in 6 months, and they refuse to, get back to me by text or phone or anything,
Because they think you haven't changed. So once you maybe take the advice that Ace and I have shared with you, and once you feel the change within yourself, then you can be a witness of that change to your children. They need to see that things have changed with you. You've come to this realization, but you need to really process and go through that with God first. Yeah. And when you come to a place now, you're at a place in your heart and in your life where you can share that and show them that this is not just lip service, but this is a real change or a real understanding that I've come to, and I want to share this with you. I want to reestablish this relationship with you guys again.
Okay. Yes, adoration would be amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And please know, Marie, that we're praying for you, absolutely, and for your intentions, especially as we go into this Christmas season. All right. Beacon of Truth playlist today. We're talking about David Bowie's song from 1971, Changes. Would love to hear from you. How have you dealt with change? Or maybe you have a difficulty dealing with change. Give us a call, 833-288-EWTN. That's 833-288-3986. Michael is calling from Saratoga. I'm not sure if I know there's several Saratogas. I know there's one in New York. There's one in California. I'm not sure where, but he's on YouTube. Michael, welcome to Beacon of Truth.
I'm doing very good, thank you. Couple things here. In regard with the whole, one actually has to deal with the topic, and then one of it is kind of like some sidebars that I'm not sure any of you may be aware of. But the whole thing with change, sometimes I know I've been guilty myself of kind of being too rigid and sticking to a routine, and then kind of where something happens that doesn't go my way, kind of get flustered sometimes. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. I get that. And I was saying earlier in the show, Michael, that I don't deal with change well myself. I'm a person of routine, because routine gives me peace, routine gives me comfort. But sometimes there are things that happen that's beyond your control that disturbs that peace, that disturbs that routine. And I've learned, and I was very impatient in my younger days when it came to certain changes. But now I've just learned, you know what? God is in control, and I can't, change is inevitable, and I just have to deal and accept these changes. And sometimes you have to, like our Marie, our last caller, sometimes you have to realize the change needs to come from within yourself.
Yep.
Right. And so those are the things I think we need to be thinking about.
Yeah, and I think, as it even ties in with the song, not only in what Maria was saying, but as we kind of look at ourselves, a lot of times we don't like what we see. So we make excuses for why we've acted the way we did, why we've not reacted the way we should, and then somehow justify it, either with the circle around us, or sometimes I've been guilty of this, twisting God's word to meet my own agenda. God's word says, blah, blah, blah. And I was wrong because I'm seeing it through a lens that's distorted. I'm seeing it through a lens of a broken man who can't see God for what he's trying to do in me, because at that time, I want to be responsible for fixing me. I want to be the one who is, look at what I've done and what I've risen above. I didn't rise above nothing. God rose me to a point of where I'm at, and then showed me that it's not about how high you are, it's about how close you are to him. And that's the point that I think we all have to get to. And I think that's what I love about this song, why it always resonated with me, because my introduction on this song was, part of the lyric was used in the movie The Breakfast Club to spotlight where in that movie you've got every clique that's represented in the high school, right? You've got the sports, you've got the burnouts, you've got, the prom queen, all the stuff. And they're all finding that they're identifying with each other in their pain. And so when you look at these lyrics, like I'll even jump to the verse because I know we have time, but in the verse where it says, and these children that you spit on as they try to change their world are immune to your consultations. They're aware of what they're going through. I was aware of what I was going through as a kid, prodigy of divorce and all the things that were going on in my life as an adult. Same situation. My kids, I knew what they were facing. I had to let them navigate and then let them know that I was there. But above all else, are you talking to God in the things that you're facing? And as they've learned now as adults, and still got teens at home that I'm reminding them of this, where is your peace when you talk to God? Because that's the only thing to navigate when change happens. You can't stop it from happening.
Yeah.
You can't speed it up. And if it really is a change in you, you want it. You desperately want it to happen, because in order to change our world, we have to change inside of us to be a part of the solution. And so that always resonated with me with this song of that. My kids can look at me and go, you have no idea what pressures I'm under, what I'm facing. When I do, but I'm not going to let on in a way that seems cocky or that I've got all the answers. I'm telling you what experiences I've been through with and without God. And if you can skip over those steps to stay close to God, then that's what I want for you. And then the things that you're going to experience that I didn't experience, then we navigate those together, but through our faith, through asking God first.
Yes, amen. Does that help, Michael?
Yeah, and then the other thing, too, that I wanted to bring with this is there's a classical music angle with this as well, because when you mentioned David Bowie, because there was another piece that David Bowie was famous for, and that was his narration of Prokofiev's piece, Pierre and the Wolf, that came from that he did with the Philadelphia Orchestra. I forget who the conductor was. But Bowie himself...
Was that an album that came out? I think I remember listening to it as a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I never knew David Bowie was... Oh, man, Michael, thank you so much for that.
Cool.
I did not... I remember listening to that as a kid.
Yeah.
My mom used to play it. Who's afraid of the big bad wolf? The big Peter and the Wolf and the other Peter. There were several different stories like that.
Yeah.
Wow, did not know that. That's great. Oh, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. Beacon of Truth playlist today. We're talking about Changes by David Bowie. Let's go to John in Dallas, Texas, listening on Sirius XM 130. John, welcome to Beacon of Truth.
Hello.
Yes, thanks you for being with us today, John.
Thank you for having me. I feel called to call you and to speak directly to Marie, who just called you about her life, and most importantly, how she offered the deepest of her vulnerability for anyone to hear. She has an opportunity to offer to her children and to her husband her inner thoughts about herself. That incredible, deep level of humility is an offering for those wonderful people in her family that she hopes will realize the change that she has realized for herself. If she does this and trusts in God and hands it all as a gift, she'll get great reward, I know.
Wow. Sounds like you speak from personal experience.
I'm an old man. Seen a lot of things in life, and that alone is such a huge gift.
Yeah.
From where I've lived to what I've done, whatever.
Wow. Beautiful. Incredibly beautiful insight, John. And I'm incredibly grateful and blessed because of your call and sharing your vulnerability and your ability to help another caller, another person of our EWTN radio family to bring healing and reconciliation in their life. So beautiful reflection, John. All right. Let's go to Charlotte, calling from the Orlando, Florida Diocese, listening on Divine Mercy Radio, talking about Changes today on Beacon of Truth playlist. Charlotte, welcome to Beacon of Truth.
Hey.
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 Great to
time
hear
and
from
time
you.
again to change it.
Yes.
We got a choir going.
Yes, sing it.
Oh. So I just turned 30, and I'm looking at, this next chapter of my life. Be happy and excited to be Catholic. I follow all the teachings of the church, but I'm also very passionately anti-abortion. And I work with groups like the Progressive Anti-Abortion Uprising and Operation Rescue because I want to just scream and cry from the mountaintops. I want to flip tables in the temple. I'm so upset about this issue that my question is, what should I do? Like, I want to commit the next chapter of my life to fighting the oppression and evil of abortion, especially in America with our culture being so upside down about it. But I just feel like God hasn't spoken to me about it and be quiet about it. But then I get really frustrated because a lot of Catholics, I just feel like they aren't as vocal or convinced as they should be about it. So.
Yeah, unfortunately, Charlotte, that is a life and death issue that has become politicized. And so many people think of it along political lines and not philosophical lines. Like when does life begin? How precious every single human being is made in God's image and likeness. So keep doing what you're doing and represent the faith beautifully by your witness and example.
Yeah, and seeing that you're also a musician, use your art, because that's a great way to reach people right with your giftings.
Talking about the songs that shape us, that is Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers and I on a recent episode of Beacon of Truth playlist. You can find out more on those. It's its own podcast when you go to EWTN.com/podcast and find songs that maybe you have connected with and you look at it through a Catholic lens. I'm Ace McKay. When Catholics Coast to Coast returns, we're going to hang out with the Pop Checks. That is going to be helping us to really dive deeper into how we organize our emotions, our thoughts, our spiritual lives within our family. In this episode, we're going to dive into the practical strategies of helping our children not just to attend, but to meaningfully participate at Mass. So we'll get to that next on Catholics Coast to Coast.
The destination for great Catholic audio programming is EWTN Podcast Central, featuring the best of EWTN radio, as well as faith-filled podcasts from our friends and affiliates across the nation, all in one place, all free. If it's central to the faith, you can find it on EWTN Podcast Central. It's like podcast heaven. Visit EWTN.com/radio/podcasts today.
Hey man, I'm Dr. Greg Popchak, and this is episode 45 of the Beatitudes podcast. We're talking about bringing littles to church. First of all, I just want to say, we also talk about this in the Catholic Home podcast this week, Lisa and I do, but I want to focus on what the dad's role in kind of making this happen and how you can really step up to help your kids learn to attend at Mass. And, a lot of this really is how we live out the beatitude, blessed are the dads who hunger and thirst for righteousness, because righteousness is really rooted in our pursuit of holiness. It's all about how we maintain our connection to God so that we know what we're worth in God's eyes, that we know what other people are worth in God's eyes, and that we want to live accordingly. And so participating in the sacramental life of the church, receiving that sacramental grace and being able to experience God in those sacraments is key to really understanding our worth in God's eyes and understanding how God wants us to love others. And so that all begins, of course, with participating fully in Mass. And so if we hunger and thirst for righteousness, we want to make sure that we're doing our part to help our children really learn how to attend at Mass, not just attend Mass, but to attend, attention-wise, at Mass and participate fully in the Mass. I want to start by saying that anything we want our kids to do at church has to be practiced at home first. Now, when I say this, sometimes parents think that means that we need to practice Mass at home, right? And I don't mean that exactly. What I do mean, though, is that we need to practice the skills that we want our kids to be able to display at Mass by having them at home. So, for example, Parents who expect their kids and who help their kids participate in family meal and stay at the table for the entire family meal, even when they're still very little kids, are going to do much better at Mass than parents who let their kids get down and run around as soon as the kids get a little antsy. And it's perfectly understandable why parents would let their kids get down and run around. No judgment there. But if you want the kids to later on behave well at Mass, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot. Now, and I don't mean, by the way, when you're having them sit at the family table, that they have to be, perfectly rigid, sitting at attention and participating in grown-up conversation. It's all about how do we help our kids get through that time. And as a side note, the point of family meals for, say, your kids who are 5 and under isn't really getting them to share the meal, right? It's about getting them to learn to be still for a certain period of time, maybe get some food in, but mainly just engage in quiet activities that don't involve screens, that involve interacting with other people. So they're coloring, they're talking about the pictures they're drawing, they're playing with some quiet activities and sharing with you what they're playing. So it's engaged play with the kids while keeping them at the table, but you're helping them learn to be still and focused and quiet for a particular period of time without screens so that they can learn to do that at Mass. Same thing with reading time. We want to make sure that we're taking time to read with our kids. I think it's really important. Research really shows that when dads are actively involved, kids' vocabulary is much, much better than when just moms are taking the lead with, say, reading and conversation. And that's because moms have a tendency to talk more in baby talk than dads do. It's not universally true, but more often true than not. And because of that, when dads are involved in talking with our kids and reading to our kids, we have a tendency to expect better language, a more mature vocabulary from our kids than moms do. And so that enables them to learn words faster and relate to those big words that are used at church more effectively. And so when we take point in leading reading time with our kids, or maybe having our own reading time with our kids, that's really important. When I say leading reading time, it's not just you sit and read to the child and they sit there perfectly attending. It's you're asking them questions. Maybe you read a sentence or two and ask them to tell you, oh, so what just happened there? Or you read a section of it and say, oh, what do you think about what this character did? Wow, that was a really awful choice. What do you think about that? Getting them to be engaged. So you read a little bit and then you ask them questions about either what happened or what they think about what's happening, and you have a conversation about it. So what's happening there, that does, quote unquote, drag out reading time, but that's the point, right? Because you want to help them learn to attend to longer periods of time. When we just kind of stick the iPad or the phone in front of them, they're not learning how to attend. They're learning how to be distracted, but then they can only be distracted for, the 30-second video or the 1-minute thing. Actually engaging in regular reading time where we're asking them questions and drawing them out helps them learn to be still and be attentive for those longer periods of time so that when they're at church, this isn't the first time they're having to do it. Another example, talking quietly. If we don't have time at home where we have kind of quiet time, where we have to learn to use our whisper voices for a certain period of the day, maybe as the day is getting to the close, right? Say the hour before it's time before we get to bed. We're going to have a quieter time where we, if any of your lights are on a dimmer switch, you bring the light down a little bit. Maybe you light some candles. Maybe you play some quiet music, and we're all going to practice using our whisper voices because that's going to help us to calm down and get ready for bed. And even if we're not tired, the point is we're creating a ritual in the home that teaches us that there are times when it's important to be quiet and to use our whisper voices and practice using those whisper voices so that when they're at church, they know what a whisper voice is and how to use it and why that's important in this space. So teaching the skills that we need to see in our kids begins at home. Not just expecting them to do it because we told them to do it once they get to church. If that's our expectation, it's never going to happen, and we're setting ourselves up for failure. One other point I'd like to make just about this is we want to make sure that we are helping our kids to pay attention at Mass. But the problem with that is that a lot of dads will tell me, but then I don't get to attend Mass at all. I don't get to listen or pay attention, or I'm not being spiritually fed. The time for us to be spiritually fed is not when we're bringing our kids to Sunday Mass. And I think it speaks to a bad habit that a lot of us get into, to expect that Sunday Mass is going to be the complete spiritual meal, right? Once we have kids, our job is to help our kids learn to attend at Mass and pay attention to Mass and get something out of Mass. And we get something sort of as a secondary benefit by seeing it through their eyes and by enjoying the connections that we see them making to the things that are going on. But if we expect them to behave themselves and attend while we're just, in deep contemplative prayer, we're setting ourselves and our kids up for failure. You have to be spiritually fed, but that's going to come by your daily prayer life. That's going to come from you attending, say, a morning Mass on your own, or going to adoration, or those other spiritual disciplines that will nourish you. Once we have children and we're bringing those children to Sunday Mass, the job is really helping them learn how to pay attention and get something out of it. And we benefit in a secondary way by helping them make that connection and by seeing them make those connections. Tying some of this all together, I think one other good thing is in that story time, reading a children's version of the stories that they're going to hear at Mass before they go, and asking them to tell you what those stories mean and really talking through that, creating that reading ritual where they're learning to attend to the stories. They're hearing it in a language that makes sense to them. If you can't find a children's version of the story, then just use the regular missal, but use kids' language for it and help them understand it. Now, what's also fun is and helpful is to play a little game with them where you say, okay, this is going to be the word of the week for the first reading. And you pick one word that they might not be so familiar with. And when you hear that word, you touch me on the shoulder and I'll know that you heard it. You're teaching them to listen for certain things. Okay, Lila, what's the word? What's the word for the second reading that we're going to listen to? And before the lector starts reading the second reading, you say, okay, remember, the word for the second reading is such and such. Touch me on the shoulder when you let me know when you got it. And then, when they do, you give them a hug and you ruffle their hair and you smile. Just to show them that you're proud of them for really listening and attending. When another thing to do is to make sure that you're bringing quiet activities for the kids to do. When I say quiet, I mean soft things, appropriate coloring things, preferably with washable markers, washable crayons, bringing things that are soft and quiet and appropriate. Bonus points if they're religiously themed, right? And we want to keep those activities just for Mass. These shouldn't be things the kids are playing with all week long. Novelty helps kids go a long way to really attending and paying attention. So we have a bag that's just the Mass activity bag. And ideally, it has some, coloring pages for this week's readings. It might have, some Bible plush characters, little finger puppets or whatever that they can play with, or other similar quiet, soft things. Sometimes I see when I say soft, I mean, sometimes I see parents bringing, their 3-year-old's wooden rosary to church, and then the kid just beats the pew the whole time with the rosary, and that's better than beating it with a truck. But still, if you can use soft plush things, that's going to be a lot more quiet and less embarrassing for you. The thing, in getting ready for church, let's not leave that to mom. Let's make sure that our kids know that getting to Mass is important for us, and we need to be playing an active role in helping get the kids ready and out the door, helping them get dressed, helping make sure that they're going through their morning routine and brushing their teeth and combing their hair and getting ready to be at the door at the time that they need to be. Don't just do what a lot of dads do, which is expect mom to make that happen. And then, we're sitting there twiddling our thumbs waiting for the kids to be ready, and then we get mad at everybody. Be an active part of making that happen. A big part of being a dad who hungers and thirsts for righteousness is making sure that you are pursuing that right order in your home by really leading that morning routine. Not in a Nazi kind of, we will get ready for church in time kind of way, but in a way that's actually helpful and pleasant, where you're joking with them, but you're keeping them on task. You're providing the supervision that's necessary to help everybody get out the door when they need to get out the door. And you're praising them for the good job that they did in getting there. So the most important thing to take away from this, though, is that anything you want your kids to do outside the home has to be taught at home first. You need to be seeing them capable of generating those particular behaviors and habits at home in order for them to transfer outside the home. So focus on what you can do to play a role in teaching your kids to attend at the family meals and be part of that process, to attend during reading times, to practice quiet voices at home at specific times, to have quiet activities, so for example, during that quiet time when we're getting ready for bed, maybe you've talked about a list of 10 or 15 different things that are quiet activities that we reserve for that quiet hour before it's time to get ready for bed. And all the screens go off, other noisy activities go away, and we focus on these quiet time activities. And you're helping the kids do that, by the way. It's not just go be quiet by yourself. It's, let's color together. Let's play with the Play-Doh together, or the Wiki sticks, which are just like wax strings that you can make little models out of, and they don't stain anything, and they're fun to work with, and they get soft in your hands. Modeling wax is another good thing like that. You can get that from any online toy store, and again, same thing. It doesn't stain, it doesn't make a mess. It softens in your hands, and it's kind of fun to play with and manipulative that way. So you're taking the point and making these things happen instead of just sort of sitting back and saying, well, it's my wife's job to help the kids do all these things. You want to show that it's important to you, because teaching your children how to connect with God in the sacraments, there's not more could possibly be important for the father. So as a dad who's really hungering and thirsting for righteousness, make sure that you are taking the lead in preparing your children to do well and attend well at Sunday Mass and other Masses as well, because we can practice, of course, if we have the opportunity to go to daily Mass, we can practice bringing the kids to those shorter daily Masses and really help them practice those skills there. But again, it's got to start by seeing that they can do this stuff at home with the suggestions that I've made. If you have any questions about making this work, don't hesitate to post them to the questions and coaching section of the Catholic Home app. If you're not a member of the Catholic Home community, I invite you to join the Catholic Home app today. Download it. It's Catholic HOM. It stands for Households on Mission, where we can take your questions and respond there, plus get tons of creative resources to help your whole family build a more loving, caring, connected Catholic household on mission. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Beatitudes. Hope to see you over at Catholic Home as well.
The essential role dads play in preparing kids at home and the family meals, definitely quiet readings, and fostering a spiritual engagement at church. That's the Beatitudes. Easy to find when you go to EWTN.com/podcast, and you'll find Greg Popcak in the midst of that, and also his lovely wife, Lisa, who is a part of More to Life here on EWTN Radio on a daily basis, but they also have podcasts, so check that one out, or Lisa's Momfidence. And this week we are spotlighting her show as well, because we are exploring the uplifting, powerful recognition that is happening in the virtues of our own kids and feeling good about parenting and family life as we head into the new year. This is Momfidence on this week's Catholics Coast to Coast.
I'm Lisa Popcak, and you're listening to Momfidence, for moms at every age and every stage. Being a mom is wondrous and delightful, but also at times exhausting and overwhelming and confusing and frustrating. Momfidence is a place for moms to come for encouragement, comfort, some new tools, and the confidence boost you need to be the mom you want to be.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Momfidence. I am Lisa Popcak. And today I have a question for you. Do you ever feel discouraged as a mom? Do you ever get in your head and give yourself messages about not being enough or some other negative thing that taps your energy and drains you? Well, if you do, you are not alone. We all have a tendency to do that from time to time, if not a million times a day. But I have a secret for you today that will help you work against that, help you feel really good about yourself, and help you see your children in a whole new light and help them be their best selves. All in one word, and that word is virtues. Now, virtues are a very important thing in the world. Virtues are sort of a universal set of values that tell us what's morally good, that makes a good person or a good group of people if they are living a virtuous life. Of course, we see this most of all in the saints of the church, people who lived virtuous lives and then have been named saints of the church. Good news is you don't have to be an alabaster statue of a saint to live a virtuous life. In fact, it is a practice that we can recognize and develop bit by bit over time so that we can be our best selves, feel connected to God, and feel more connected to our families. So when you go through your day as a mom, there are two things you can do that will help you feel better about yourself, give you more energy, and help you recognize what's true, good, and beautiful in your family life, in yourself, in your children. That sounds like an awesome way to spend a day, much better than beating up on yourself in your own mind. So here's what you do. You think about virtues by name. You think about what is true, good, and beautiful in the behaviors of the people around you and in yourself. Virtues are things that help us be our best selves, help us recognize God living and working in us, and help us connect to each other in our best way. They're great. They have great value for ourselves, for those we love, and for the whole world when we live out these virtues. Now, let's talk about what some of these virtues are, and there are many. You can do an internet search on them. You can go to the USCCB, or we actually have a list that you can use in our Parenting with Grace books, both Parenting with Kids with Grace and Parenting Your Teens and Tweens with Grace. The lists are in there. They're helpful to have so that when you get in the midst and chaos of a day, they don't just go out of your mind. You might even want to, put some of them up in a piece of art in your home or on the refrigerator or in your notes app so that you can remember them during the day. Let me just name a couple here so that we can define what we're talking about a little bit more. There are things like prudence. Now, prudence comes off as a very old-fashioned word, but what it really means is using good judgment, using the wisdom that God gives us. So taking that pause and trying to use good judgment. I'll give you a very simple example that you can use with your children. Very often our children will be playing a game or playing out on the playground, and they'll climb up on the monkey bars or in a tree, and they're going a little higher than they've gone before. And you can stop and say, hey, is this feeling right to you? Do you feel like you can get back down when you need to? Do you feel comfortable doing this? Does your body feel good about this? What you're teaching them is to use good judgment, a holy sense of cautiousness, not to be afraid, not to be anxiety-ridden, but to use the virtue of prudence. And so when you're having that conversation about this, say, do you feel like this is prudent? Do you feel like this is something that you can handle? Do you know what your next step is going to be or what your steps are going to be getting back down? So you're teaching them with this sort of old-fashioned word, but it's the word of the virtue, this sense of prudence. Temperance is another more, we don't hear this virtue word very often, but it's an idea of being able to have self-control. So when we're having those conversations, again, okay, do you feel like you can be self-controlled if you go to this party, if you're playing this game? I remember my best friend and I in 4th grade decided we could no longer play Monopoly with each other after school because every time we played Monopoly, we had such a fight that one of us would end up like storming out of the room. So we realized it wasn't prudent for our friendship to be able to continue to play Monopoly. We had to come up with something else to do because that was just not something that gave us any self-restraint. Fortitude. The idea of being able to be strong or courageous in difficulty. Now, we think of fortitude in times of real battle, but we have to exercise fortitude all the time. Do we have the fortitude to make it through that difficult social situation or that studying for that test that our kids have to study for? To be able to say, yeah, this takes real strength and real courage, but I believe you have the fortitude to do this. You're calling out a moment of connection with the strength that God is giving you or your child in that situation. Things like faith. That was a moment of faith for you. You really had faith that God would come through for you in this situation or that you could do this. We always think of faith as just something we exercise in a church building. But when we call out moments of faith throughout the day, we had faith that, X, Y, and Z would happen, and it did. And good for you. You really connected with God on that. Hope is also a virtue. These are all things, of course, if you're a Christian person or a Catholic person who's listening to this, you may be familiar with the fruits of the Spirit. Those are also virtues. They are part and parcel of living our life with God, but love and joy and peace and patience and kindness and goodness and faithfulness and gentleness, and as we said, self-control, are virtues that we live out because God lives in us. The Holy Spirit allows us to be virtuous and have these little moments of God living in our lives. Now, why are these things important? Because when we can name them, we feel a sense of rightness and goodness and strength and hope. When we as moms go through our day, going from one emotional battle to another, from one household mess to another, from one tantrum or argument to another, it drains us. But when we actively look for, and name the virtue we see our children living out in a moment, they're not going to be virtuous all day long. Of course they're not, because virtue takes practice. It takes cultivation. But they will have moments of that we can then call out, and they will feel great about themselves. And we as their moms will feel great about ourselves because we're recognizing the goodness, the godliness in our children. And we're recognizing that we must have tilled that soil so that they can be those people, that they can live that virtue in that moment. So look for it throughout the day and name it. There's the old saying of try to catch your children being good. Sure, but good in what way? Because good is not enough. They've been good. It's too easy to roll over that and not let it feed us. Our children don't know what's good and what's bad in terms of their behavior. We teach them, but unless we define it by its virtue name, they really don't understand it. And so if we say to them, be good when we go to grandma's on Sunday, well, in what way, Mom? What are you asking for? Be kind, be respectful, be patient with the meal at grandma's house, be loving. Those things are virtues that your child, when they hear you affirming those virtues in them over and over again, they A, know what it means and what to do, and B, they know they've done it before, so they can do it again. So you're empowering your children.
Practical strategies to help us identify kindness, courage, patience. Great stuff from Lisa Popcak and Momfidence. You want more on that? Easy to find at Podcast Central. Go to EWTN.com/podcast and subscribe wherever you like to stream so you don't miss future episodes. I'm Ace McKay. Once again, Happy New Year. Let's make 2026 the best year ever. And remember to let God define who you are. I'll see you again next time on Catholics Coast to Coast.